All right, well, it's been a while. I haven't posted for a few months, and I figured it's about time to make some comments about what's going on in the world. And just want to remind people about their bad choices they made a couple years ago and how they wanted to lock everything down, and they thought that it would be okay to go ahead and do that, and that, because we're saving lives and that it's the right thing to do. Well, here we are. It's been a couple years, and we're still suffering from it. In fact, it's going to get even worse. The you know, the repercussions of the choices we made to take liberty away from people. We probably should have allowed some people to die. People who weren't, too intelligent and that they wanted to go ahead and go out into the world and participate in activities with other people because they thought they were healthy enough to handle a cold virus. But now everyone's suffering from this thing called inflation, right? Well, what? Why is everyone surprised? I mean, if you go back to my early videos, you'll hear me talk about what would happen and what's going to happen because and I'm not the only person that knew this, that if we were going to shut everything down, what kind of results are we going to see from it? And it's going to affect us for the rest of our lives. Yes, we will not recover from what we did because of the inflation and the basically the cat's out of the bag about America, okay? We are printing money and just giving it to people. We are printing money and giving it to countries that are fighting battles against other countries that want to see us quit printing money and buying their products, okay? And don't let us forget that it was the Republicans first that decided to print lots of free money and just give it to people. D. Trump, right? Good old Big D Trump. He was the guy that went ahead and signed all those trillions of dollars to be given to people for nothing. And then here we got, basically brain dead Biden who came in after. And I still say, let's go, man. Let's go with that, Brandon, right? Let's go, Brandon. So anyway, he comes in, and what does he do? He does exactly like the Republicans do. He goes ahead and prints up some more money. And then he's like, let's go ahead and give $50 billion to that country that's battling another country because we can just print it and just give it to them. But that's not going to cause inflation. Dude, anytime you print more money, that is inflation, okay? Anytime you increase the money supply, it creates inflation. Okay, but yet we have a media and we have a government that will lie to you in your face just like wearing masks, right? Telling you that they'll keep you from getting sick, okay? Things like that. And that's the kind of world we live in where people are so eager to be lied to and they're so willing to believe what they're told. And the sad thing is, it's your fault. Yeah, it's your fault because you didn't choose to say, no, I don't agree with that. No, I think we need to stay open anyway. Because now the inflation is here, and guess what? Guess whose fault it is? Yeah, it's all of our faults. Yeah, it's not the government's fault. It's not Joe Biden's fault. It's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's your fault. So when you get upset when you see the prices go up, when you get upset about the fact that you can't afford to buy your Uber Eats anymore and you can't afford to have your Netflix, well, it's your fault. Yeah, because you either hid into your church and paid your tithing or whatever donations you had and prayed and prayed and prayed, just like the people in Germany did back when the Mr. Big H was in charge, and those people that they just hid. And the big difference between us and those poor people in Germany is that we actually have weapons, right? We actually still have that. They're getting smaller and smaller and weaker, but we still have some. Enough to where we could actually cause an uprising that would be seen and heard, that would be large enough to actually get the government's attention. But you know what? We are so comfortable with our Uber Eats and our DoorDash and our Amazon and all of our Target and Costco that we're not going to. We're just going to sit back and let the heat get hotter and hotter and hotter until all of a sudden you're going to see your 401 and you're going to see all your value and your money that you have saved It's just going to go poof. It's just going to disappear because we have been stealing from the rest of the world since President Kennedy passed away. Yeah. And then you had George Bush who went ahead and started the medical, the great infrastructure of the American medical system, which basically is what is controlling us right now. You got big Bill B out there, Mr. Gates out there buying up as much food production stuff as they can because, what's the biggest thing we have control of as the United States? Besides the dollar. What's the other biggest thing that we control? And not the nuclear arsenal. Yes, the food supply. Can you imagine how many people will starve to death if they put us up against a wall and we have to make a really rough choice whether we're going to feed our own people or are we going to let the rest of the world starve that became dependent on our ability to produce them food? Yeah, so I'm just want to put that out there that just remember when this gets worse, when you're paying $6 to $7 a gallon, just remember whose fault it really is. Yes, it's the Republicans' fault. Yes, and it's the Democrats' fault. And it's also your fault. Because you went ahead and chose to look the other way and prayed to some false god and hoped that maybe he would come down and save you. But in reality, this happens all the time in societies. Yeah, the cycle, right? Prosperity, and then there's lots of people are born, and there's great happiness, and then all of a sudden the people become so wicked, and they start to come up with fantastical sexes and things, and they become to the point where their way of life is no longer conducive to what really produces prosperity. And then what happens after that is there's a lot of death. Yeah, a lot of people die because we've lost track of what it really takes to survive on this rock that spins through space. And we're always so willing to point fingers and blame other people. But this is a societal thing. And so all of us religious people and all of us non-religious people, we're all going to suffer because of the fact that we were too busy making our money. We were too busy ripping off other people and stealing from others because America is so great, right? We were a great country at one time, but we allowed ourselves to allow people who have bad lives to proliferate, to come into this country, to not learn the culture, and to not give two shits about anything that is considered American, right? And now the government goes, wow, look at all these issues we're having. You people are really, really out of control. We're going to have to take away more liberties. So every time you see injustices going on in this world and in this country specifically, it's because we are allowing the judicial system to just slap people's wrists for when they do things wrong. Or they don't even prosecute people anymore. You can go into a 7-Eleven and just steal something and walk out. And they're not going to do anything. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things where you could be trespassing, and the government / police can't really do anything anymore because we've allowed the proliferation of wicked, unjust people and corrupt individuals into our government system and into our judicial system that it is out of control. Yes, we are approaching chaos. And if you think about China has got so many people that live in that country. And China's been around for a really long time. And why do you think they have such strict laws and rules over there? Why are the people over there so robotic? You ever notice that when you meet Chinese internationals that come here to this country to visit our parks and stuff? Like, you ever run into them when you go visit, like Mount Rushmore or the Grand Canyon, and they're rude, and they walk right in front of you, and they don't even say a word to you, and they bump into you? You know why? It's because those people are so used to being treated like robots that their humanity is gone. And this has been going on in that country for centuries. Okay? And guess what? They had so many people. At one time, they were so prosperous that they were able to have many, many children. But what happened? Yeah, they became like we are here in America. They got to the point where they became so wicked and so selfish and just animalistic that the government eventually morphed into a tyrannical, totalitarian type of government. And guess what? That's coming here to America. Yeah, because of you. Yeah, it's your fault. It's because you go ahead and you're like, well, everyone else is doing this bad thing that I was raised to believe was bad, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it myself because everyone else is getting a piece of the pie. So I got to make sure I get a piece of the pie too. Yeah, I've basically, unregistered myself to vote. I cannot even imagine myself participating in like the courtroom, right? If I get called to participate in the proceedings of justice in this country, I wouldn't even know what to say, right? I would be like, you're not my peers. So I don't want to be called as a juror because you're not a peer of mine. The society has gotten so far off what America used to be that I cannot place any faith in our judicial system because of the fact that we have so many people that are just willing to support people and the government to just be able to print money out of thin air to pay for our luxury goods that we have in this country from other countries who have people that are basically working for peanuts. Okay? Yeah, we're no longer the country that we were taught when we were kids about how great America was, right? We now live in a cesspool of sin and wickedness. Okay? And so I no longer consider myself a citizen of this particular country that we live in. I'm still a United States citizen. But it's, pre-circa 1970. Okay? Because pretty much ever since JFK was assassinated, we went off the huge deep end when it came to our rights as citizens of this country. Our government doesn't protect our borders at all. Okay? And they allow the proliferation of wrongdoing because they want that to happen. They want that crisis to happen. They want people to deal with all of the crap that they are not doing to protect us. Okay? The federal government is responsible for protecting our sovereignty and our borders. Okay? That's what they were originally intended to do. And they are not doing their job. Okay? They're doing way too much. Everyone's got their eyes focused on this abortion thing. Okay? Okay, look. It really is so late. I mean, people, do you realize what's going on while you're so fixated on this abortion thing? When you're so fixated on the formula shortage, okay, that's exactly what you're doing. You are just dreaming, you're beating the drum. Boom. Boom. Just like everyone else did 2 years ago when you locked everything down. You have got to remove yourself from mainstream media. You have got to focus on what is real versus what isn't. Okay? I don't read the news anymore. I still see blurbs and farts that linger past that I actually have to smell because I can't help it. I have to breathe. So I get tidbits of information. And the thing is, people, this is all being orchestrated. Okay? But it's not being orchestrated particularly by a certain individual or maybe even a group of individuals. It's being done because of cause and effect. Okay? Our inability to grasp what is real and what is important is why we're going into chaos. We think it's okay for people to riot and to tear down, history and to, basically prop up certain colors in our country, which is racist. Okay, we're supposed to be a colorblind society, and yet here we are propping up racism. All right? And it's so bad that we're just getting what we're sowing. Yeah, and if you did want to blame somebody or something or to give your blame to someone. Well, I remember when I was a child, I was probably about between the ages of 5 and 10, and I remember watching TV and seeing these government debates that were going on in the debate rooms, and they used to always talk about how they were going to pass, if they don't stop this spending and quit printing money, that they were going to pass this debt on to the children, and that's what's happened. Yeah, that same generation that talked about trying to not spend money, trying not to go into debt, is the same generation that we locked everything down for when that cold season came through a couple years ago. Yeah, that same selfish generation that is about now starting to gather their 401s and all that retirement money that they basically fleeced from this current generation that's coming up. Okay, if you're under the age of 30 years old, I feel sorry for you, because you're probably never going to get anywhere in this country because of the fact that your parents and part of your grandparents. Now, I'm not talking about the greatest generation. I'm talking about the baby boomers and part of my generation. Okay, I was raised from a baby boomer. Okay, my parents were involved in my life, but I had a lot of religious upbringing. I had a lot of scouting influence, and I also had a lot of influence from the greatest generation that ever existed on this great nation. And they're pretty much dead now. All those people are gone. Okay, they died before this cold season came through. I'm specifically talking about my parents. Yeah, the baby boom generation. That is the most selfish generation that possibly has ever existed on this planet. Yeah, it is. They're probably the most wicked. And the thing is, they think they aren't. They think they're so great. And the thing is they robbed the cradle. Okay, they basically robbed all of the future generations' money by creating these glorious retirement programs. Okay, and guess what? Those people are retiring, and they want their retirement money from the companies that promise them money if they use their 401 system. Okay? The same generation that created all of these trillions of dollars of debt since JFK was assassinated by our own government. Yes. So we can continue to fleece the rest of the world of what it has. So who are we angry at? Are we angry at the Russians? Are we angry at the Chinese? No. Heaven forbid you should be angry at the people that created you, your parents, and possibly some of your grandparents, depending upon what age you are. That's the generation that lived off their parents' coattails, the greatest generation that ever existed. Basically, your World War II people. And those people just came in willy-nilly, and most of their children are rotten to the core, don't know a damn thing about anything that's virtuous. And unfortunately, I happen to be taught by the greatest generation, and I remember the things I was taught because I had it beaten into me so much that now I see the rest of the world is completely going down a shithole because of what we did during that generation that now is going into the retirement age. Yeah, it's that bad. So if you want to point a finger at someone, but you won't. Nope. You're going to blame the D, and you're going to blame the R. You're going to blame the donkey, or you're going to blame the elephant. The sad thing is, it was most likely your parents.